Alrighty. Make sure that goes live. I think it has. Wow, this is probably the earliest stream I've done in a while. Cool, we're live. Welcome back to Talos of EV, live on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. It's your typical Wednesday EV stream. It is earlier than usual. I'm actually going to be taking off on a trip shortly, so there might not be an EV stream next week, depending on how schedule goes. The uploads may slow down a little bit, but that's okay because we got to talk about, finally, some development going on with the Biden administration acknowledging Tesla through a White House press event where they were talking about the future of investing in the Build Back Better plan and all such things. And of course, the petitions and all of the attention of people trying to get Biden to say the word Tesla in the first place finally seems to have at least somewhat paid off, because in his last speech about all the growing EV production going on in the United States, he referenced Tesla as their largest EV automaker. So, of course, they always back the unions, and they're not as into the fact that Tesla is not into unions very much. But recently on the news, they had the White House secretary as well, Secretary Pete, say, the president strongly believes in every worker having the free choice to join the union. So I would say that's a bit more open to the concept of, okay, if you want to unionize, you can, but, you know, if you don't feel like it, don't worry about it. We believe in good-paying jobs, and we believe unions built the middle class. We also admire the range of American companies that have innovated, including Tesla. So the fact that the secretary is now saying these things and Biden is acknowledging, hey, before, you know, we talk about GM leading the transition or Ford being innovative in this sector, now they're straight up saying, yes, Tesla is the largest EV automaker. They don't say too many nice things about it until this morning they mentioned that, you know, there's a wide range of American companies that have innovated, including Tesla. It still feels kind of backhanded, but it's progress, which is what I'm grateful for. Because before, you know, there's all these stages of acceptance, right? And I think we're in that stage of, like, they're slowly starting to at least acknowledge their existence, which is better than what it was before, because we couldn't even get them to say the word. Now they're at least saying it, and they're including it in their lists. But it's still probably a way to go, unfortunately, because I frankly don't think that most of the American companies have innovated very much. I think Tesla's by far innovated the most and has grown their EV fleet the fastest. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a wide range of innovation, and Tesla happens to be one of them. It's like, but Biden even mentioned Rivian right after bringing Tesla up, saying that, you know, there's younger companies that are starting deliveries now and that kind of thing. So I was excited to see some acknowledgement of even that, because I'm not sure if Rivian is using unions so far. They are in startup mode, so that's a bit less common. But it's improvement nonetheless. And it gets us one step closer to the government actually planning things for reality, because it's very difficult to figure out charging connection standards and talk about superchargers or talk about investment in EVs, and especially if it's in limbo right now and it's probably not going to happen. But if they do want to try to provide some kind of tax credits for electric vehicles, particularly under a certain price point, then being able to acknowledge that, hey, this is probably what most of our EV tax credit is going to go towards, because Tesla builds more EVs than anyone. This is a good sign. It's unfortunate that it's taken this long, but I'm just trying to focus on the positive, I guess, in the meantime, and just dwell on the happy the happy progress that we're having in the moment. But Nicholas Hetcher says, looking good, my soon-to-be Tesla brother. Thank you. And Isaiah Watkins says, second. Glad to hear it. Before I forget again, I just wanted to once again give a shout out to our enhanced and executive members of the Tesla Fund, which is Joshua Vinnick, Martin Turner, Wojciech Kaminsky, Planet Text, Dr. Mark Choi, who is a dentist in the Woodland area, Bennett Williams, Dylan Zimmer, Jacob Hallbach, Joshua Levitsky, all of you guys, seriously, thank you for supporting the Tesla Fund and getting us that much closer. It's definitely all up in the air right now because we really have freaking no idea what the what Tesla is planning for the 4680 Model Y or with the Giga Texas or what's going to happen to the Fremont Model Y. So it definitely makes it hard to plan for. But the income also being volatile does not help. But I think later this month we should probably have another Tesla Fund update for you guys. So we typically wait until after my payday just to keep you guys in the loop. So probably after February 21st. Or probably right on that day. Probably right on February 21st. That's when we'll have an update on, how YouTube did and how the podcasts have done and how the Patreon's doing. So stay tuned for that. Alvin Brock says Tesla is a union buster. Well, what's funny is there's been actual data on Tesla employees making more money than the union employees of GM because Tesla pays a decent wage and also rewards their employees with Tesla stock, which has performed obviously pretty freaking well over the past couple of years. So they are. I think Tesla is in favor of employees being compensated fairly. They're just not convinced that unions are the best way to do that. And Elon has several times tweeted stories of unionized employees that work for automakers having bad benefits and not being prioritized. And I think that there's probably an argument to be had there. And I personally am in favor of letting the employees decide. And statistically, there's just been a lot of cases of Tesla employees not really being that interested, particularly being more of a tech company startup than a typical automaker. They're not really aligned with legacy auto. So when you're in Silicon Valley and when you're hiring and working with software engineers and hardware engineers and that type of thing, it's kind of a battle of who can keep you the longest. And they're trying to move very, very quickly, whereas legacy auto is, I guess, more about keeping things stable, keeping things predictable, and frankly they're not doing that very well right now. Between GM and Toyota and Ford, they're all losing production numbers, and they're not building as many vehicles as they used to. They're all kind of downsizing right now because of the chip shortage, and they're basically just carrying this tremendous debt, and as their revenue declines, they're probably not going to be able to retain these loans as long as they sign contracts for them. So it's not looking good for legacy automakers regardless, whereas Tesla is in this state of acceleration and trying to grow as quickly as you can. And when you're trying to innovate with extreme urgency and grow your production numbers as fast as possible, unionization is kind of not helping them prioritize that. So I can see why a lot of the employees are probably not on board for it. But White House just wants to get Cybertrucks. Only reason why they mentioned Tesla recently. Well, I was reading an article this morning. I didn't get too deep into it, but I saw the headline at least that it's right here. The U.S. Army is going electric and wants to be net zero by 2050. I mean, that's a pretty far away goal, but it is something that the U.S. government would probably have to align with. And I saw a comment yesterday on my Cybertruck video about the Cybertruck probably would be a great military vehicle because it's fast, it's got the high range, and the exoskeleton is fairly durable. So, if they just want Cybertrucks for the U.S. Army, then maybe they better start acknowledging Tesla as soon as possible. Vincenzo, hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, love from Italy. Thank you for always giving us updated news as soon as you can. Well, I appreciate you watching it because I love talking about this stuff. I think about this kind of stuff all day, even when I'm not working. So, yeah, I'm happy that there's an audience for it. I don't care how big or small that audience is, as long as there's other people interested in EVs as I am, then I'm happy to keep making videos on it. But yeah, it's good to see Tesla, like Jeremiah said, good to see Tesla finally getting some credit, because I think that definitely more of our administration should talk about standards when it comes to charging. And frankly, I believe it would be much, much easier for all EVs in the U.S. to adopt the Tesla connector because there are more Superchargers than any other charger, and there are more Teslas than any other EV. So switching everyone over to that standard, I think, could simplify a lot and make the EV transition easier. Even if they don't like Tesla because they're not unionized or whatnot, just the amount of frustration from the American people and the amount of adoption and the amount of adapters needed would be substantially less if we just all agreed on the Tesla connector as one port. But we didn't agree on this a long time ago. Now we're just trying to make CCS the standard for everything, even though there's less vehicles with CCS and there's less chargers with CCS. So, yeah. Are you still using a 2018 iPad? Yes, of course. New ones aren't worth it. Forget the presidential limousine. The president will be riding in the bulletproof Cybertruck in the future. I think the vehicles that they transport the president in are a bit more beefed up and durable than even the Cybertruck is, because they use very, very special types of glass. The Cybertruck is bulletproof to a 9mm handgun, but there have been, I'm sure, someone could try to assassinate the president with far larger, higher firepower, so they got to use more advanced equipment than that. But the Cybertruck would probably be a good template to start with. You could drive the Tesla Semi around. You can scroll back in the stream, Sid, if you want to see the beginning updates. Some of Biden's advisors let him know that upsetting Tesla's owners will cost him votes. No one likes being lied to, and saying GM was leading was a blatant lie. I agree. It was a really, really bad look, and I think that Tesla, whether or not they align with Biden's position on unionization, is still supportive of their mission as a whole of just accelerating sustainable energy, and pretending that Tesla didn't exist and not inviting them to EV summits and telling everyone that GM was leading. Yeah, it's just a terribly bad look, and it still probably is a bad look. The fact that they treat Tesla like they're in the corner of like, oh yeah, there's a lot of good companies out there. I guess Tesla's one of them. I think they should get even more credit than they're currently getting. But I'm still happy there's progress being done right now. Hi from a French Canadian here. Does the fact that the midterms are coming close be one of the reasons Biden mentioned Tesla? It probably is, considering it's taken this long for Biden to acknowledge them. It's probably some strategic decision that they realize they're hurting themselves more by not acknowledging Tesla than ticking off some of their lobbyists or ticking off some of the legacy automakers supporting their political party. So I think it is very much a game. Otherwise, he would have acknowledged Tesla much sooner. And it's just about, getting elected and getting attention at the right time. So Tesla needs to get its act together and actually have a unionized workforce. I'm in favor of them deciding on it. If they don't want to do it, then I don't think they should have to. This little startup called Tesla might work out. No, I don't. I haven't been covering Android stuff at all, really, in recent history. I'm more of an Apple guy, so sorry. Not talking about the S22 anytime soon. Also, I'm leaving on a trip immediately after this live stream ends, and I made some videos on the tech channel. I've only got one video for the EV channels planned and scheduled for while I'm away, so I apologize. This channel will probably get a little quiet after today. There's probably going to be a video on Friday, and then after that, it might not have anything for a while. But I'm taking a cross-country trip and gonna be seeing a lot of places and traveling with my wife and my father-in-law. So I'll be posting all of my travel vlogs over on Talos of Talks and be filming it and editing my experience. So it sounds like fun, but why does a company need to unionize to get their act together? Sounds like a cold. Well, there's certainly advantages to having a union. I'm not trying to deny that, but I just think that look at how far Tesla has come and look at how well they're doing without one. And the Tesla employees seem to be compensated very well with how they're being run currently. And statistically, the Tesla employees make more money not being unionized than the employees that are unionized for GM. So I don't know what the advantage is if that's the case. It's like, well, do we have proof that this isn't working? Because if they're growing as fast as they are, and the company's performing well, and they still have enough people working for them, and they're being compensated well relative to unionized companies, then why change it? If unless they can get a bunch of employees agreeing to it, then why bother? Not traveling in a Tesla. Well, it'll be a good prototype, beta travel test to see what being in a robotaxi is like, considering I'm not traveling by car. I'll be in a train, which I won't have to drive. So one day when autonomy is figured out, maybe this will be a similar type of travel experience because the car can drive itself. Um, let's see. Hey, thanks for joining, Randy. Thanks for being here. Hoodie on with sunglasses. You don't even go here. What is that from? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, but I definitely would enjoy road tripping a lot more if I didn't have to drive. But I'm I'm really trying to figure out what our best decision is. Elon's wife did say that they were in a call. Oh my god, which one? There's several, but the Grimes were never actually married, huh? They were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and they had a kid, but yeah, never actually got married. It's like what was interesting that I would probably want to do a video on if I was staying in town is that someone recently was they claim the problem is I've reached out to them and I'm not sure if I have definitive proof, but there's a guy on Twitter named Darren that has claimed to have gotten a VIN from Giga, Texas, which got me excited. I'm looking at his tweets right now. He says, have a few people checking. And now my advisor said earlier they will only see an RN number for me. Going in tomorrow to dig deeper. I honestly expect my fourth VIN to change. If not, then awesome. But basically, there's like a Tesla VIN decoder, and one of the letters in the VIN tells you which factory it was built at. And if it's built at Fremont, it'll have an F. And if it's built at Giga, Texas, it'll have an A. And allegedly, again, I haven't got a hold of Darren, and he hasn't sent me the official VIN. He's just claimed that his VIN says A in the position where the factory name would be. And he's in Florida, so that supports the idea that you need to be on the East Coast to take delivery from Giga, Texas. And he ordered a performance white Model Y, but his estimated delivery with that VIN says February 25th to March 1st. So we all know how reliable Tesla's estimated deliveries are, so that might not be very accurate, but it does point to the idea that they might start assigning VINs now to people ready to take delivery, and I'm going to be paying extremely close attention to that because I want to figure out which vehicles they're prioritizing. I mean, this doesn't really support the idea that they're doing long range first. If this guy's pre-ordered a performance, that means that there's a chance maybe Giga Texas is only doing performance Model Ys for a while, which is somewhat logical given Giga Texas is probably going to start out with fairly low volume production, and the 4680 batteries, if they allow for better range and better weight savings, applying that to a performance model first would probably make sense because that model typically gets lower range than the typical long range options. But oh yeah, we watched Mean Girls not long ago. That's right. That was in there. The advantage is representation and overall benefits, not just stocks. I guess, but if it was the option between representation and getting paid more, I would take getting paid more. But that's just me. All I'm saying is I'm in favor of them deciding what they want to do. It's their call, and so far they haven't been interested. Are you going to do a live IRL stream? I don't know what the internet situation is going to be on my trip. I've been told that on this train ride, there's a lot of situations where you don't have internet at all, and sometimes you're in cities and you do have internet, but a lot of the cities we're going to I've never been to, so I have no clue if I'm going to be able to post content or do videos or live streams at all on this trip, so that's why I'm just assuming I'm not going to. If I do, you'll know about it and I'll go live, but if not, then I'll just enjoy the trip. What non-car like Tesla do you think Tesla will make first? Boat, plane, jet ski? Oh, that's an interesting question. Does the Cyberquad count? It's not really a car, but I don't know. I guess a jet ski would probably be easier than a plane. A plane is going to be tricky. I know Elon has on numerous occasions said he wants to make an electric jet of some kind, and I'm curious to hear what he has in mind. He said it's some kind of VTOL vehicle that would fly at very, very high altitude where the wind resistance is lower. So it would like go straight up vertically up to a very, very high altitude and then just kind of cruise at low air resistance with very little energy. So I'm sure he's got some crazy ideas. I don't think it would be as large as a jumbo jet, but getting the watt hours per kilogram down low enough to the point of that being a viable option would probably be a trick. Whereas a boat, I think there already are a handful of electric boats. It's just a matter of, building batteries in a watertight way and having a decent amount of energy stored in them so that you can spin basically one motor. And there you have it. You have an electric jet. He said it in Iron Man, but he said it in podcasts too. It was a joke in Iron Man 2, but he said it in podcasts as a real thing. When you get your Tesla, what are the first things you're going to do to it? PPF, change the steering wheel to a yoke. I have not even considered much of that type of thing. I'm not really the type of person that cares much about how the paint holds up, mostly because I'm not interested in selling it. Some people are more in the class of like buying and selling and replacing the car over time. Our car has, paint chipping all over it. Granted, our car costs a lot less than a Tesla, but basically the Tesla we're buying, we plan on keeping for decades if possible. And if the only reason we won't keep it for decades is if it gets in a crash and it gets totaled. But if that's the case, then the PPF is probably not going to make that big a difference. So right now, the whole challenge is just saving all the money for it and trying to find the right one. I've been talking to Tesla advisors all week and getting nowhere. Asking them about how do I get a model from Giga, Texas, like where do I have to be, because we know people on the East Coast that we'd be willing to stay with, and frankly, me and my wife would be happy to travel wherever we need to go to take delivery of a 4680 Model Y. I wish that was, the Texas factory, but the truth is Tesla's not allowed to deliver vehicles in Texas unless they've been out of the state. So I don't even think being next door, even if you lived 1 mile from Giga, Texas, I don't know if that even increases your chances of taking delivery of one. I'm going to pay attention to the people getting assigned VINs from Austin. If it turns out that there's lots of shipments of 4680 Model Ys going to Florida, then we'll go to Florida and try to get one. And we might end up just putting in an order and then fussing with the Tesla advisor over and over again. We're not interested in taking delivery until we can get an Austin-made model and just fighting about it. So I'm not terribly concerned about all of the aftermarket accessories. Like I'll cross that bridge when we get the car. Then we can start worrying about that type of thing. I haven't done a crazy amount of research into all the work you have to do to get a yoke and how much it costs to get paint protection film, but I know it's not necessarily a cheap operation. Relative to the cost of the vehicle, I'm sure it's not that much, but still, when you don't know how much your vehicle you're saving for is going to cost, and you don't know how much you're going to make, you don't typically want to add on additional expenses that aren't necessarily required. And to me, the paint protection film is not a must-have, because if there's chips in the paint or there's scratches, I don't really care at the end of the day. I'm not going to intentionally drive it off-road through the gravel at high speed, but same time, I'm like, let's just get the car. Let's just focus on that. And maybe I'd talk to my friend about adding a yoke and that kind of thing. But let's see, 50,000 feet per 5 minutes with that VTOL. That would be interesting. Cyber drone, possibly a bestseller on the Tesla website. Yeah, I don't know if the drone thing is as easy to get into as the whistle business or the tequila business or the cyber quad business. I don't know. There's a lot of cheap drones out there. Whereas the ones that actually sell are made by DJI, and they're fairly complicated with their software and hardware, so that would probably be a bit more work than your average merch. I would say, if you're not counting Cyber Quad, which isn't really a car, or a motorcycle, I know Elon doesn't like motorcycles, but I don't think it really matters in the long term, because Tesla's going to outlive Elon, and if Tesla wants all vehicles in the future to become electric, there's a ton of countries where two-wheeled vehicles are far more popular than four. And if you want to make a difference in that country, you're probably going to have to make a motorcycle. So I don't really care that Elon claims they're not safe, or Elon claims they're too dangerous. Is like, well, in another country, you're going to have more gas vehicles if you don't make a motorcycle option for them. So if you're not counting those types, then probably a jet ski or a boat would come first, just because it'd be so simple to make. I think, relative to a plane, that would be far more challenging. But Tesla also likes to go after challenging markets. It also feels like, based on the last earnings call, Tesla and Elon is kind of more focused on Tesla bot, because they think the market potential for that is far greater. And they're right if they can do it. I have my doubts that the software will be good enough for the Tesla bot to make a meaningful difference in the near future. If they're talking about maybe having a rough prototype this year, then I think we're still 6-7 years away from mass production, and maybe even 10 years away from the software actually being good enough for the Tesla bot to actually do some meaningful work. Yeah, like Michael said, can the robot give you a piggyback ride? I hope not, because that would mean it's fairly strong, and if it's that strong, then it could do some more dangerous things to you as well. You're probably not a great piggyback machine, given how small and lightweight it's going to be. What about battery degradation? I think that it probably gets too much hype in the media. The thing I've noticed is there's still a crazy amount of 2012 and 2013 Model S's driving around where I live, and on freeways and stuff. They're not just city cars. There's people driving them on and at a high speed. They're still passing me, and I'm like, okay, these cars didn't go 300 miles when they were new, and people are still driving them nearly 10 years later. So they're still useful. They're still getting good use out of them. And Andy Sly just did his video on his Model 3 long range after 100,000 miles and 4 years of ownership. And he was at 2.2% range degradation. So he could still charge over 300 miles after 4 years. So if the Model Y long range we end up getting is still 330 miles and it's still using the 2170 cells, that's still plenty fine for me. I'm probably getting a little bit too hung up on wanting to get the 4680 batteries. I just think that if it's possible at all to get a structural pack with a more efficient design from a factory with better quality control, obviously I would like that if it's possible to get it. So I'm going to try very, very hard to see if it is possible to specifically tell Tesla, I want this model, please get me that model. But if it's not possible at all and I have to get the 2170 cells, it's not the end of the world. Like I've said before, I would probably be happy and comfortable getting the Model 3 rear-wheel drive. That only has 270 miles of range, but you could charge to 100% regularly, so it's a bit more obtainable range. And I've said before, I'd be fine getting that one, and it would take... If my degradation would be similar to Andy Sly's, which I imagine it would, because, Model Y has the heat pump, and his Model 3, brand new, was 325 estimated by the EPA. So he started with 325 and he can still just barely get over 300. The Model Y with 2170 cells would be starting with 330. So after 4 years and 100,000 miles, it would probably still charge over 300, depending on your efficiency and driving style and that kind of thing. So to get to the point where the Model Y long range was worse range than the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, it would probably take, 7-8 years. It would be a while. Name one millionaire on GM or Ford production line. There are plenty on Teslas. Yeah, that's a good point. Back in the days, my uncle got an Audi in a factory when he was on holiday around 60 years ago. Wow. Yeah, it's been a minute then. You in the U.S. get Model Y with 4680 batteries, but I in Norway get Model Y with 2170 batteries from Berlin. It's not okay. Everyone in the U.S. has gotten 2170 Model Ys so far. No one in the U.S. has taken delivery of a 4680 model. I wouldn't say we're necessarily spoiled in the United States because we have no clue how to get this model. It's not like a fine and dandy situation. Yay, we all got our batteries, because the majority of Model Ys built in the United States throughout all of 2022 are still going to have the 2170 cells, because Giga, Texas is going to be slow to ramp up. It hasn't started deliveries yet, and Fremont is still at full speed building as many Model Ys as they can right now. So the entire West Coast, at least as Tesla has stated, the entire West Coast is going to continue getting 2170 batteries. And the entire East Coast is going to get kind of a weird mixture. Even the East Coast is going to get some 2170 cells still, and some of them will get 4680s, but we don't know when. and we don't know what the difference is, because like what difference does it make if it turns out that the 4680 batteries have nearly identical range to the 2170 cells? Well, hopefully they're better cycle life, in which case they preserve their range a little bit longer, but they're working as fast as they can, Arthur. I mean, they've got a 4680 battery facility under construction right now at Giga Berlin, so they're going to switch over as soon as possible. Also, Giga Berlin is only building performance Model Ys right now. They're waiting on paperwork to start deliveries. The factory is in production. It's produced hundreds of vehicles. They just can't deliver them yet because the German government hasn't given them permission to start deliveries from that factory. But when they do, it's only going to be the performance models. If you're getting a long-range Model Y in Europe, it's probably built in China, in which case it's going to have the same 2170 batteries that they're already using in the United States. So, yeah, obviously everyone's trying to get a hold of the 4680 batteries as soon as possible, and that's probably something that they're considering. And I think it is a little fishy that they haven't told us the range numbers or the weight savings yet. Maybe it's because of the Osborne effect, and they're worried that if they publish those listings, they're going to get a massive number of cancellations on their pre-existing Model Y orders, which doesn't help their estimated delivery windows. You know, honestly, if I could speak fairly clearly, if it turns out that Giga Texas with the 4680 batteries is just building the performance models, so they have a huge surge in performance orders, and the long-range dual-motor Model Y from Fremont gets a lot of cancellations, a bunch of people back out on their orders there, I would be happy if they ended up lowering the price, because I'm in favor of still just getting the cheapest possible Model Y I can. Like, if they offered a lithium iron phosphate version of the Model Y with 250 miles of range, this discussion would be over so fast. We'd order that one today if they had it. I would love to see that standard range rear-wheel drive Model Y come back, but it just doesn't make sense right now because Tesla has said they're not limited by batteries, they're limited by the chips. So if you've only got enough chips for a certain number of vehicles, and you can only make a certain number, would you rather they all be $60,000 or would you rather them all be $50,000? From a business standpoint, it just makes too much sense to sell every car you can at a price high enough that people are still willing to pay for it. So there's not much logic in Tesla lowering prices right now, so I could cross my fingers and pray, oh God, please bring back the rear-wheel drive Model Y, but it's just based on how the business is right now, it's probably not happening. Andy's my reference person to know what would happen to my long range. Lucky you, Randy, I've got me, myself, and I. Do you think Tesla should give up on Bitcoin? No, I think it seems to have worked out pretty well for them so far. I think they're sitting at around $2 billion on it. If they lose money on the Bitcoin investment, then they get to write it off as a loss, and they don't have to pay as much tax. And if they gain money on it, then hey, they gain money on it. So I think it's a good idea. I mean, I don't think it's like the best idea in the world. Some people are like, oh my God, Tesla's so smart for putting their portfolio on Bitcoin. I'm like, it's kind of volatile. Bitcoin goes up and down. I think there's far more interesting sides of the business than how they store their capital. But what Elon said really made sense to me about it, because he said that storing that kind of money in European banks, they literally have negative interest rates. So if you store that kind of cash on hand, the banks, just for holding that amount of cash, will fine you. And especially with inflation, that value is being stored in the bank just as cash is quickly depreciating, and you're losing money to the negative interest rates. So storing more capital in the form of crypto, which is volatile, yes, but it's probably more likely to go up over time than fiat currency. Sure, why not? If you're trying to preserve your assets, that's probably a good way to do it. Remember when there was a Tesla under $40,000? I do. I also think the US dollar was worth a lot more back then, but yeah. The price of all vehicles has gone up a lot. That's another thing to keep in mind. It's not just Tesla. Can they build now and deliver later, or are those destined for scrapped? I hope they don't have to be scrapped. My thought process is that they could turn them into showroom vehicles if they're not allowed to deliver them. Just showcase them at the factory if people are touring it and you want to showcase like what the Model Y looks like and how it feels. Let them be test drive vehicles and let them be at showrooms for people to play around with. I feel like Tesla is smart enough and resourceful enough that they're not just going to build hundreds of vehicles and then destroy them because they're legally not allowed to deliver them. I hope they find a better use for them. I think before we've heard of Tesla actually taking battery packs out of older models and reusing them and other things. So maybe they'll take the 2170 cells out of these test Model Ys and put them into new vehicles and deliver them again. I don't know. 4680 equals 20% to 80% in 5 minutes. I don't think that's true. I believe that Elon has already referenced, and there have been sources that have already referenced, V3 Tesla Superchargers are going to get software updates that support like 300 kilowatts or more. So essentially the current battery packs, even the 2170 batteries, can charge faster than 250 kilowatts. They just haven't software unlocked it yet. We don't know what the charging limits of the 4680 are, but I'm sure they charge fast. I'm sure they've considered that. Tim Watson says, I've mentioned this many times that 4680 might be used simply as cost-saving form factor. I agree with Osborne if specs are substantially better. I asked Sawyer Merritt about it, and his response was basically that the wording they chose at the Battery Day presentation was that the 4680 battery and the structural pack and stuff allow for a range increase opportunity. And the fact that they use that word opportunity makes me think that maybe to prevent the Osborne effect or to prevent an over demand for one particular model and under demand for the rest of the Model Ys that are in production. Yeah, exactly. They might want to prioritize cost savings, and that means that the range won't be substantially better with the 4680 Model Y. I still think there has to be some weight savings. I don't think there's a way you can get around that. If you're making a structural battery pack, it's got to be lighter, which means it's got to be more efficient, which means it's got to charge less per mile to travel. Tesla should sell Model Y LFP NFTs. Oh my gosh. They might as well sell full self-driving as an NFT because they could actually deliver on that, right? They just moved my Model Y Performance estimated delivery date from February 10th, 24th to February 18th, March 18th. So I'm wondering if I'm getting a Texas car. I would encourage you to look up the Tesla VIN decoder because there's a way, once they assign you a VIN, to tell if it's from Fremont or Austin. There's a certain position in the VIN placement where if it's an F, it's from Fremont, and if it's from an A, it's from Giga, Texas. So yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of estimated delivery dates getting pushed around right now. It sounds like they said on the last earnings call, Giga Texas wants to prioritize the East Coast. So if you're on the West Coast, I think that's going to diminish your likelihood of getting one. Get 2022 says, unions are corrupt. Union leaders are known for skimming millions from union workers. Unions are slow. Farzad, Tesla workers on the record as union would not help Tesla. I do believe there's a debate to be had about it. I don't think it's like an abundantly obvious solution because, oh, you're in Chicago. I guess that's somewhat central. Yeah, that might happen then. I hope everyone gets the 4680 model. I just want to know more about it. I just want to figure out what difference does it make. And I think it would be far more simple for Tesla to make an option on the website specifically that's from Giga Texas. And I don't even really care. I mean, it would be sad because I'm in the market, but I think it would even be okay if they charged a ton for it, right? Because if Tesla's worried that all the Model Ys from Giga Texas are going to be too popular and everyone's going to order it, then jack up the price on it. Make it super duper expensive if there's going to be a crazy amount of demand. That way people feel more inclined. Like me, if you said the 4680 Model Y costs $70,000, then I'd be like, okay, I'm not getting it. I'll get a Fremont Model Y and I'll put in my order right away. They would get my money faster, I think, if they just were transparent with everyone and just said, hey, we're going to build this model, but it's going to be expensive because Giga Texas isn't going to have the production capacity to sell $55,000 Model Ys because the demand is off the chart for that price point. So let's get a bunch of people opting for $70,000 Model Ys. Tesla collects a huge profit on those because they're probably cheaper to build than the Fremont Model Y, but fill it with some really high energy density batteries and have 380 or 400 miles of range. but have the 0 to 60 time be 3 seconds and still include the performance tires and spoiler, and make the best Model Y possible with the great range and the great acceleration and great performance overall and great handling, but charge what people are willing to pay for. Charge a lot for it. And then it would make my decision very easy because I'd be like, okay, that's not for me. That's not what I'm willing to pay. I just want, a reasonably affordable Model Y, and I'll get the cheapest one I can. So I'll take the Fremont one. Some of the 2,000 test cars in Berlin will be used to drive inside the area and pick up people from the airport and things like that, but the rest will be scrapped. Yeah, that's too bad. I hope that's not the case. Volvo has instituted a Giga casting on one of their new cars. The shift to follow Tesla's every move is accelerating. I did see that. I thought that was interesting. I think it's a concept. I don't think they've actually started doing it yet, but yeah, the Giga casting technology has proven to be tremendous amount of cost savings and fairly safe and effective once you get the alloy correct and you have a Giga press working functionally. So it was only a matter of time that other companies were going to pick up on that, which is good. I think companies should copy Tesla. Some people get all uppity about, the Rivian software looks a lot like the Tesla. I'm like, good. I want them to. I think the Rivian is the closest to matching the Tesla software, and the sooner we have more and more companies copying Tesla's manufacturing techniques, the sooner they can be profitable and ramp up EVs as fast as Tesla has, which is great. We need more auto companies growing as quickly as Tesla does. That's one thing that I keep trying to remind people whenever they say, "Oh, other companies will catch up." Other companies are only going to catch up to Tesla if Tesla slows down. And so far, no one's even matching the growth rate of Tesla. If you just look at year-over-year sales, year-over-year growth of electric vehicle production, Tesla is already in the lead by far, by the way. I think there was some data from a research group on what the most popular EVs were in 2021. Model 3 was over 500,000 vehicles delivered, and in second place was Model Y at over 400,000 vehicles delivered. And next place was, for one, the mini EV, which doesn't really count because it's under $10,000. It doesn't go over 60 miles an hour, and the range is 80 miles. So I don't even think that should count. It's like a glorified golf cart. It's like a fraction of the price of a Model Y, and it's only in China. But the next best-selling EV was the ID4 at over 100,000 vehicles delivered. So Tesla's way up here, and second place is way down here. And still, VW, Ford, GM, none of them are giving timelines or estimated production capacity that's anywhere close to Tesla. In as far as total vehicles delivered, you can get all hung up on pickups and say, well, Ford is delivering more pickups than Tesla. It's okay, but it's vehicles at the end of the day that they're prioritizing. How many customers, how many people can we switch over to an EV? And no one is growing as quickly. No one is talking about doing 20 million EVs by 2030, or no one is talking about growing production by 50% year over year. At least Tesla's actually growing much faster than that. So, and all the factories that they're announcing are not going to be in operation as quickly as Tesla's factories are. And I don't think they're prioritizing the Giga press technology or the casting technology, or frankly the 4680 batteries and how quickly those are meant to be ramped up. So I am happy to hear Volvo is switching. I want to hear more about people switching over to more efficient manufacturing techniques. I think that it's a tough decision that probably not everyone agrees with, but it's honestly the right call for Tesla's mission statement to leave out certain components and leave out certain things from their vehicles that might upset some people, but allows them to ramp up faster, because that's ultimately what's going to matter for their business in the long run. Something I was talking about in the comments with someone the other day is that they noticed Teslas don't have the handles on the ceiling that a lot of elderly people use when they get in the car. There's usually a handle there, the oh crap handles, or whatever word you want to use, those little handles that help you get in and out of the car. Tesla doesn't have, and I've actually so far always found those handles in every other vehicle, but Tesla keeps their manufacturing efficient and they keep their complexity low, and they don't have those. And it's kind of a bummer. I would be fairly happy if they had them, especially if they found a way to incorporate them into the interior. Like they don't have to be a hinge. If there was just like a little handle to grab there, like some cars have, that would be nice. But they don't have those. But I'm sure that helps simplify on cost, simplify on parts, and I'm sure what we're seeing on the outside, which looks very clean and minimal, is only a fraction of the total components of the vehicle, and how they're designing the HVAC and how they're designing the motors and how they're designing the batteries to be as simple and as mass producible as possible is one of the reasons that Tesla has the best margins in the industry, and they're able to ramp faster than everyone else. So you'll lose some people, you tick off some people by getting rid of those features and removing certain things that people are used to, whether it's a latch for the glove box, whether it's passenger lumbar support, whether it's some chip that or one speaker. They removed a speaker in the North American Teslas recently because they realized that it wasn't making that big a difference. It's all about just accelerating the transition to sustainable energy, right? That's their mission statement. It's not, their mission statement isn't become the best car company in the world or make the best cars in the world. I remind people of that whenever they complain about the quality control in the service, which is true. Tesla does have quality control problems. Tesla does have service problems, but as long as they have demand backlog, it doesn't really matter because it means people are willing to tolerate the issues to take delivery. And as long as there's people willing to take delivery, then unfortunately, yeah, Tesla can get away with making kind of spotty quality control. And I do think they care about it more than people lead them on, because they're focusing a ton on these new factories, which have next level precision and more efficient manufacturing techniques. And with those better manufacturing techniques, you will get better quality control. So I don't think it's that they don't care about it at all. It's just not the priority. Obviously, if it was the priority, they could shut down the Fremont factory, burn through a bunch of cash for several quarters, and try to optimize all of their assembly lines to have less quality control problems. And they could spend a ton more money on customer service. Just from my interaction with Tesla advisors, I know that they're pretty bad at communication, because I will just go on the Tesla website and ask, how do I get a 4680 Model Y? And they'll be like, don't worry about that, just buy the car. And then I'll get texts for days later, and they'll call me, and they'll be like, we're excited for your Model 3 order. And I was like, I never even said the word Model 3. Why do you think I want to order a Model 3? So there's just bad communication, but being the best car company in the world is not their mission statement. It's about accelerating the transition, and that primarily involves delivering as many EVs as possible. And the reason they don't shut down the Fremont factory is because there are still people and customers willing to pay for the vehicles that Fremont is producing, even if they have problems, even if the quality control is not the best in the world. It's not stopping people from buying it. And at the end of the day, if you look at customer satisfaction surveys, Teslas are very, very high. Quality control surveys, very low. Customer satisfaction, very high. So to me, that's evidence of most consumers not caring too much. It's like, yes, they know the QC isn't good, but it doesn't stop them from buying it. Let's see. I'm in South Africa. I can't wait for Tesla to come to my country. Electric cars are this side are so expensive. Yeah, I mean, it's Elon's home place, so I would hope he would eventually be excited to launch them there. I'd be excited for them too. As many places as possible. GM will beat Tesla in year-over-year EV percent growth in 2022, guaranteed. Well, that's true, but that's because they only have such a low number. 26 EVs delivered in Q4. I know for a fact, though, there will be some GM fanboy that says, they went from 26 EVs to 40,000 EVs delivered in Q4. So it's like some crazy 20,000% growth or something. Some China manufacturers have requested Giga casting to use this already, I think. Pour forward to GM. Yeah, the sooner you can, the better. Crappy quality and customer service is just part of the Tesla ownership experience. It wouldn't be as much fun without the hazing. That is interesting. What would they talk about if they had great quality control? I guess we'll find out, right? Because I think Giga Texas and Giga Berlin will have great quality control. And once those once those factories start out producing Fremont, then what are people going to complain about? I don't know. 1.3 million plus Cybertruck orders, that will keep them busy for years to come. Even if most of the orders don't go through, which I think is likely at this point, because I'm predicting the Cybertruck is only going to have one trim for like 2 or 3 years. It's just going to be quad motor, and it's just going to be the long-range battery pack, which might not even go 500 miles. They might decide that that's more than it needs to be. My guess is it's going to be like 450-mile range, which is still good. A quad motor with the rear wheel steering, and it'll have the driver display and all that. And it's going to cost $90,000, maybe more, maybe like $92,000, and 80% of the Cybertruck reservations will be canceled. A bunch of people will be like, "What? That's way more expensive than I thought." And Tesla will say, "Well, because we're not making the tri-motor and because we're not making the dual motor, we don't have to honor your FSD price reservation because we're introducing a Cybertruck that's a new model and you didn't lock in FSD with this model." They did the same thing. I know that sounds mean, and it is, and I know that sounds deceptive, but they did the same thing for the people who reserved the rear-wheel drive Model Y. They reserved FSD at a certain price, and then Tesla never made that Model Y, and then told them they have to buy the long-range dual-motor Model Y, and Tesla wouldn't honor the original FSD price they locked in. So I think that because the demand for the Cybertruck is so insanely high, they're not going to be able to make 200,000 in the first year of production. When they first get production going, it'll probably be closer to 100,000, maybe less. And if that's the case, I think there is demand for around 100,000 a year, 100,000 vehicles or so for a $90,000 Cybertruck that goes 450 miles on a charge. So it's not a great situation, especially because there's going to be a ton of people that are like, "What? I thought it was going to be $40,000 or $50,000," and it's like, yeah, the demand's too high, and Tesla needs to discourage people from buying it. As time goes on, and they catch up with Cybertruck orders, and they're able to start matching the demand and get through their backlog, that's when I could see them down the road making a dual motor option or something cheaper that goes 300 miles instead of 450 or something like that. I don't know. The fact that they changed the wording on the website to up to 500 miles makes me wonder, especially because they announced the Plaid Model S at Battery Day and said it would get 520 miles of range. And then later on, Elon was like, there's no point to doing Plaid Plus. The regular Plaid is just too good. And you don't need to go 500 miles on a charge. It doesn't really matter. So that sucks, but because I do think certain people definitely want to, especially with the Cybertruck for towing, because they know whenever they start towing with the Cybertruck, it's going to lose half its range. So getting 500 miles is really more like 250. I just have a feeling that because they said up to 500, they're eventually going to settle for less on that. Probably over 400, yeah, just to be competitive with all the other EV trucks in that price segment. But I still think it'll be of tremendous value. I still think at $90,000, it'll be worth it. You're not going to be able to buy a better pickup truck for utility and practicality. Not to mention this will be the first pickup truck in the world with supercharging access. So that in itself is going to be worth a lot as well. Elon has said you don't want to buy a car with a ramping production if you can help it. Having owned a Model X for almost 6 years, don't get hung up on the battery chemistry, get the range you want. The problem is I don't really care much about the range, but the other problem is Tesla is always going to be ramping to a certain extent. They've said right now, Fremont is trying to ramp production at higher capacity. Giga Texas is going to be ramping up production for several years, as is Giga Berlin. So I know the interview you're talking about, but I don't believe he specifically said don't buy it during the ramp-up process. He just said that you might expect more quality control issues during the ramp-up process. But hey, we've noticed Giga Shanghai has fantastic quality control, and they've been ramping up production like crazy. So I think there's technically a way to still get good QC even during the ramp-up period. What do you think the Autopilot rewrite? When do you think the Autopilot rewrite will be released to everyone? Oh man, I don't know if we should. I think you mean FSD beta. Autopilot, I don't think matters too much. It's just about lane keep and adaptive cruise control. But if you're talking about the beta launching to everyone, it's just. I feel like the wide release has to be when they feel so confident in it that there's going to be countless zero emission drives, and it becomes really, really common. So, I don't know. It could be years at this point. It could be a long time. Don't get hung up on the 4680 battery. It's not necessarily something I'm getting hung up on. I just want to know if there's a way to get it. If there's a way to get it, then I'm willing to do it, because why wouldn't you? It's the newer design, and it's going to come from a factory that is using more advanced manufacturing techniques, and that means it's not so much the cell itself. It's like if it's a structural pack, that means lower weight, which means better efficiency, even if it's the same range. It's not really about range. It's just about how much it costs to drive the thing. And if there's a 4680 Model Y being built right now, and we're only a couple weeks or months away from delivery, and I'm in the market, I want to see if it's possible, because I'm not planning on flipping our car within the near future. I want to buy one and hold on to it for a long time. What I'm trying to say is I'm even comfortable if it turns out that it's not possible for me to get the 4680 Model Y. If I find out that there's no way I can do it, or it's far more expensive, or we find out what the range of it is and it's worse, and it's only on the performance model or something, then I would just be, okay, it's not for me. We know what it is. Let's move away. Better if you could get it, but honestly, most of the benefits right now seem to be on Tesla's side, less on the consumer side. I'm sure, but to me, it's more about like, this is brand new, like this is coming out this year. So if especially for the channel, I plan on doing a ton of videos with the car for the EV channel, and if it's possible for me to cover the latest and greatest from Tesla, I will. Best efficiency is rear-wheel drive Model 3. It's true. It's just, I think that the Model 3 would cover our needs of a vehicle today, but we're not planning on buying another Tesla for a very, very long time. So we kind of want to get a vehicle that's going to cover our needs of tomorrow as well. We're buying a bit more car than we need right now, just so we're kind of future-proofed. But yeah, if Model Y gets too expensive, or the EV fund doesn't grow as fast as we'd like, yeah, I'd be perfectly happy with it. Rear-wheel drive Model 3 is a very, very solid plan B for us right now. Incredibly solid plan B. It's just going to depend on this year, and how the channels do and all that stuff. Probably they tricked software on Plaid to show us 405 miles, so that keep the efficiency high, but the car can do 520. No, that's not. That is definitely not the situation at all. There have been teardowns. There are teardowns going on at Monroe. We know exactly the batteries they use. We know the exact cell chemistry. We know the exact size of the battery pack, and we can analyze the powertrain, and we know exactly how many watt hours per mile is consumed by the Plaid and the long-range Model S. The Plaid actually doesn't go 405. It's just a long-range one. And it's not a software limiter. You can detect that kind of stuff in testing. It's not a software limiter. You may want the 2170 with the mini small pack, because keep the Y after the warranty is over the cost of placing one or two battery packs than the one-piece 4680 pack. I don't believe that's really in Tesla's plan. I don't think they're long-term expecting to make a bunch of battery packs to replace older Teslas. I think their goal is to make the battery health so good that the battery lasts the life of the car. With at the rate of degradation we're seeing with most Model 3s and Ys, they probably will. Tesla, I don't think, will even be interested in servicing a battery unless it dips below 70%. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's been a single Model 3 or Model Y with range health that has deteriorated that much. And they're preserving the battery health even better than the Model S and X did. There's been battery replacements in Model S's and X's, but I don't think there's been that many at all in 3s and Ys. Most Tesla batteries will last as long as the car. I believe that is true, and I'm sure we would be fine for decades even if we got a 2170 Model Y. That's not my concern. It's just like brand new batteries, brand new factory coming online this year, starting delivery soon. I'm in the market for later this year. If it's possible, I'm going to do it. If it's not possible, then that'll clear up our planning. I personally don't want Tesla to announce any new vehicles until after Cyber and Roadster are out, as well as more semi updates. Yeah, as exciting as new models are, I think you're right, Christopher. It doesn't really make sense to unveil more when they've already unveiled so much. I mean, I'm already kind of annoyed with the bot. It makes sense. I get why they're doing it. It's a good recruitment tactic, but it's like it's just created a whole nother can of worms for the people doubting Tesla software teams and FSD. It's like we already know that people are going to say, oh, where's the Tesla bot for years and years and years? And it's like, oh, it's vaporware, it's not real. So, yeah. Um, Back to how Elon had a weird answer to the 25K car question. Do you think they don't see it as a priority anymore? They definitely don't see it as a priority right now. I mean, if they did, they would probably be working on it. I mean, Elon openly said on the call, we're not working on the 25K car. And in response to the question asking how the development on the 25K car is going, he said, it's the wrong question. What matters is the vehicle autonomous? And that results in the uh, lowest cost per mile of transportation. So to me, that answer was more about they're focused on solving FSD and they want to figure out robo taxis because then they could make cars for super duper cheap and they would drive you around for super duper cheap. Um, so I think that's where their priority is. I don't think that they necessarily need to make a car at $25,000 because the demand is already crazy with an average selling price of over $50,000. So imagine how much higher the demand would be if their average selling price was $40,000. You know, imagine if they lowered, even if they just shaved another $10,000 off the Model 3. You don't even have to adopt, a super long range or build a compact model or a smaller design or anything. Just their current existing lineup, but cheaper, the demand would be even more crazy off the charts. So I think that they actually can deliver millions and millions of vehicles at the prices they are now, even though we haven't seen vehicles like that sell at that volume. But like Sawyer Merritt is saying, the Model Y is slowly becoming it's about to overtake the Toyota Camry in California, which is half the price because of how high the demand is for these types of vehicles. People are willing to spend more money on an EV, specifically a Tesla, because they know the gas price. They won't have to pay for gas anymore. They won't have to pay for oil changes or as many brake pad replacements. So cost of ownership gets a bit lower. Hopefully Tesla insurance helps with that too. But also the demand for a car that's connected with software and with supercharging access and with autonomous driving features. There's just a lot more demand for that than there is traditional new cars, which don't have the bigger emphasis on software. Elon said, for example, with FSD, it'll cost $2 to travel 10 miles with a robotaxi, way cheaper than a 25. I think he meant less than that at Autonomy Day, but yeah, obviously, if you can get rid of the driver, you got rid of the most expensive part of an Uber. But I personally just don't think it's as close as Tesla does. And I don't think Tesla is a great judge on how close robotaxis are either, because they've been statistically wrong for 5-6 years now. And I'll believe it when I see it. I would be happy to be proven wrong, but so far, the skeptics of FSD and the skeptics of robotaxi have been correct, which is a bit of a bummer. I mean, there's been growth. Yes, the software has gotten much, much better. FSD Beta is doing tons of stuff that our cars couldn't do just a year ago or just a couple years ago. But I just see a ton of room for growth between where we are now and where they have to be for robotaxis to work. There's been a ton of growth in autonomy, but there hasn't been a ton of growth in liability. So far, Tesla has not assumed any liability with any of these updates. They've all still been about you are in control. It's your car. If it gets into a crash or it gets into an accident, you're responsible. You have to take over. There's all these things that is still on you, the driver. And I would be more thinking we're close. I would say we're getting closer to robotaxis if Tesla starts assuming more liability with how Autopilot or FSD performs. But so far, that hasn't happened at all. Jonathan Root says, do you really want to be the beta tester for 4680 batteries? Wait until they iron out the kinks. I believe that's what they've done already. I mean, the Cato Road facility has been building 4680 batteries since 2020. I think they are ironing out the kinks. Tesla tests a lot of their batteries internally before they deliver them. I don't think that's the type of thing that there's still kinks to figure out with. But yeah, I would love to be the beta tester for them. If they're bad, then I'm happy to be a channel reporting on that. It would suck, but I think that if there is someone that's experiencing bad situation with 4680 batteries, then I'll talk about it. But it's still all under warranty. If the battery health deteriorates super fast or something, or if the battery, I don't know. This is unlikely, but if it caught on fire or something, Tesla would replace it and it would be serviced, and So yeah, I'll be a beta tester, just like I'll be an FSD beta tester. I think you had a quote that went something along: "If you can't decide, go with the less expensive option, Model 3." Well, we don't have to decide right this second. We're getting close to having to make a decision, because we do want to take delivery this year. But yeah, if you're on the fence about something, try to figure out if you can settle for less. And I'm pretty sure we could get by with the Model 3 just fine. It's just obviously the Model Y is a better vehicle. That's just an objective thing. It's more practical. It's got more space, and it's got the HEPA filter, and it's got the better headroom. And I've spent more time in a Model Y than I have a Model 3. So I definitely, like, if it was not a matter of price, and it was, of course I would go with the Y. So if this is it's more about, like, this is a decision we're planning on owning the vehicle for decades potentially, then might as well get the one you want. The question is, we don't know what we want very well. And if we start getting, I think we'll have a much more clear view of what to do if there starts being 4680 Model Y deliveries, especially if one person who takes delivery of a Model Y is able to show us the Monroney sticker, and they tell us, okay, here's the range, here's the efficiency, here's how it's performing. And if it's identical, then the 2170 option, yeah, that would definitely make it less appealing. Or if we find out that all of the 4680 Model Ys are the performance model, or all of them are the 7-seater, or all of them are something that I'm not willing to get because it hurts efficiency or it makes the vehicle too expensive, that'll clear up some things. And because Tesla said they expect first deliveries to be this quarter, I feel like we won't have to wait too much longer, and probably get our order in by April or May, around that time period. Maybe sooner if deliveries are sooner. Let's see. In the future, we will be content creators when all of our jobs are autonomous. Yeah. I think there's still a lot. Tesla Bot is cool, but I don't think it's going to take all the jobs away anytime soon. I think this is a decade-long project. It's not a couple-year-long project. I agree with Jonathan Root. I would wait for Tesla to work out the kinks, hear some reviews, and see data on the efficiency degradation for 1 to 2 years. I'm not willing to wait that long because we've been waiting already for 3 years for these. We've been talking about buying a Tesla since 2019, and we've kept delaying it to prioritize other things. Let's wait and see if it gets cheaper. Let's wait and see if it gets better. And then Battery Day happened, and I was like, okay, let's wait and see for these batteries. Now the batteries are almost here. They're in production, and deliveries are starting, and everyone's saying, I would wait for them to iron out the... I wait even long. It's like 2 years go by, they're going to have some other chemistry, some other thing that everyone's going to be saying to wait for. So you got to draw a line eventually and just say, nah, I'm ready. I know there will be better models. I know it will get better over time, and I know there will be updates to better range and better computers, but you could wait forever if that's your mindset. So depending on how much we make this year, it could end up being a Model 3 rear-wheel drive. It could end up being just a 2170 Model Y. I'm just waiting for more information at this point, because there's not really a huge difference in whether or not we lock in our order today versus in a couple months. Imagine owning a Model Y for 40 years plus 30% battery degraded. That's not bad, actually. What's 30% range degradation on... Geez, Apple Pencil. Let's see. So if it starts at 330 and it loses 30%, it would still go 230 miles per charge. Owning an EV for 40 years and you could still go over 200 miles of charge is not bad at all. Think about the gas savings of not paying for gas for 40 years. Honestly, I don't think it will be at 30% range degradation at this rate. If most of the range degradation in 2170 batteries are within the first year, that's when you see the biggest drop-off, and then it tapers out and remains pretty stable. It still degrades, but it's fairly slow after that first year. Andy Sly is saying he's at around 2%. Some people are more closer to 5%, but I haven't seen that many vehicles degrade that quickly. So, yeah, 330 I think is fine. Today is the best day to own an EV, assuming many factors surrounding an individual situation. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're in a situation where you've got other things to prioritize financially, then it's probably not a good time to buy, but... Elaine says, is there a website to find out our ranking for our Cybertruck orders, or with all the changes in postponing the vehicle and change of specs, Tesla will reevaluate ranking later when production starts? So I've said this many, many times, and I keep trying to remind people, Tesla does not deliver pre-order reservations based on who ordered first. Okay, this did not happen at all with the Model Y, but for some reason everyone is convinced it's going to happen with the Cybertruck. They think whoever ordered the truck first gets their first delivery, and then whoever ordered the Cybertruck and they're the 100th in line gets the 100th Cybertruck built up. That's not how it works, because all the Cybertrucks are going to be built at Giga, Texas. They're going to be loaded up onto trucks, and big shipments are going to be sent into directions based on where the most demand is and what is closest. Like, the Model Y deliveries prioritized who was nearest to the Fremont factory. They didn't prioritize who ordered online first. So there were people that ordered a month before deliveries began. They were getting their Model Y before people that ordered on the launch day. People that put in their reservation the day they unveiled the Model Y. So definitely don't expect your place in line. Even if, I'm sure there is some website, I think the Cybertruck Owners Club has some decoder that says what your place in line is for the Cybertruck reservations, but it doesn't mean you're in a first wave or something. Like, someone who orders a Cybertruck in Texas like a couple months ago might get their order before someone who ordered the Cybertruck in California on unveiling night. It just depends on how they want to export from Giga Texas and how many vehicles they send in each direction. So it doesn't really matter what your place in line is. It's just going to be when Tesla says they're ready for you. So don't have a lot of faith in that reservation tracker. You might be the 1 millionth reservation, but that doesn't really mean you're going to be the 1 millionth Cybertruck delivery. Got Tesla insurance, and the default score they give you, 90, gave me a rate of 115 a month. Now my safety score is 100, and Tesla says my next monthly payment will be 70 a month. That's awesome! Congratulations, David. I hope they bring that to California. I'm kind of bummed that that's not a thing here. They said on the last earnings call they're actively trying to get California on board with driving behavior data so that they can adjust your insurance rate, because I would definitely drive like a freaking grandma just to get my insurance rates lower. That's for sure. I'm at 10% battery gone, but I think it's because the first year or so I didn't have much home charging available, so it sat in the cold a lot, and I could have preheated more too, but has sat at 225 out of 250 for almost a year now. I have owned my rear-wheel drive Model 3 for 18 months. Yeah, Model Y, Mike, I think is around 290 as well, but also that range indicator is not super accurate. It depends a lot on your driving style and driving habits. It's when you charge it up all the way to 100% and you look at what the miles are, it's basing it a lot off of what your most recent driving has been. So it's not always, just because it's 10% of your EPA estimated range doesn't mean the battery has actually degraded 10%. If you drive more easily and don't drive as high speed, then the range number will increase and say, oh, actually your range is higher than that. So it'll fluctuate. It's not a great indication of battery health. But yeah, that's what most people have said. They notice a lot of degradation in the first year. Let's see. Tesla gets new camera from Sony now, which has two times more pixels and much more sensitive. It will make self-driving closer to the goal. I think it was Sony. I think it was Samsung. I did a report on that. I don't remember a deal they signed with Sony, unless this news came out this morning, but I do not see it. Let's see. Have I read? I feel like I'm missing. Oh, Michael Willis says, I wasn't planning on ever selling my 2020 Model 3 Standard Range Plus until I did and upgraded to 2022 Model 3 rear-wheel drive, and used car prices remain ridiculous. I'll do it again in a year. I believe it is entirely possible. It's just we're gonna be a one car household. We have one car right now. When we get the Tesla, and if there's any service issues figured out, we'll take care of that. But after the Tesla is all ironed out and we're using it, we don't plan on keeping our current Sonata. We want to sell that. And this whole process has been quite strenuous. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's exciting to talk about, which car we're going to get. And I like talking about EVs, but the finance side of things and, delaying our investing strategy, we wanted to prioritize so much more investing, and we're having to put all that on pause so that we can get the car. This is not something we want to spend more time talking or thinking about, but considering how much my wife and I have talked about and planned for it for all these years. It's like we're kind of excited to just get this over with. Let's just get the car, which is kind of one of the reasons I lean towards the Model 3 is because it's so much cheaper. We could get it sooner. It's like, let's just get it over with, and then just have it. But again, we're going to be paying the price of having a smaller car for decades to come because we're definitely not planning on selling the car and upgrading for something else later. I've gone through the process of selling cars. It's not fun for cheap cars. It's definitely not going to be fun for Teslas. I have frequent 120-ish mile trips, pretty much all highway miles, and certainly don't always drive like a grandma. That's fair. You have the name. Oh, gotcha. It was Samsung, yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, I agreed with Christopher earlier. They don't need to unveil new cars personally right now. But oh man, I've been live for so long. I'm sorry guys. I could be talking about this all day. This is so much fun to chat about. But I got to get going. I've got some trips to make. So I appreciate you all for watching the channel, for tuning in. And the videos are going to slow down a little bit. But hopefully there's some news that I can come back to once I get some internet connections again. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to our executive and enhanced Patreon members. And I hope you all have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.